Ever wondered how a man of humble beginnings rose to become one of the most feared dictators in human history? Our journey begins in the early 20th century, with a young Adolf Hitler struggling to make ends meet in the city of Vienna. Here the seeds of his extremist ideology were sown, influenced by the fervor of German nationalism that was sweeping across Europe. The outbreak of the First World War provided Hitler with an opportunity to serve his country. His experiences on the battlefield further hardened his beliefs and honed his leadership skills. After the war, his disillusionment with Germany's defeat led him to join the National Socialist German Workers' Party. With his charismatic speeches and powerful rhetoric, Hitler quickly ascended the party ranks. His political ambitions were fueled by a vision of a dominant Germany, a vision that resonated with a nation reeling from the harsh terms of the Treaty of Versailles. Thus began Hitler's rise in the world of politics, setting the stage for a reign of terror that would stun the world. How did Hitler manage to transform a struggling democracy into a brutal dictatorship? The year was 1933, and the Reichstag, Germany's parliament building, was ablaze. Hitler, recently appointed as chancellor, used this crisis to pass the Enabling Act, granting him emergency powers to bypass the parliament and rule by decree. This act was a pivotal moment in Hitler's rise, as it effectively marked the end of the Weimar Republic and the birth of the Third Reich. But consolidating his power wasn't enough. Hitler needed to eliminate all internal opposition, leading to the infamous Night of the Long Knives. Key figures in the SA, the paramilitary organization that had helped Hitler rise to power, were purged, ensuring Hitler's uncontested control over the Nazi Party. With the death of President Hindenburg in August of 1934, Hitler assumed the role of Führer, becoming the absolute dictator of Germany. With a firm grip over Germany, Hitler was now poised to implement his vision for a new world order. What were the key events and policies during Hitler's reign that led to the Second World War? Upon Hitler's rise to power, he immediately began executing his aggressive expansionist policies, which would ultimately lead to the onset of World War II. One of his first steps was rearmament. Despite the Treaty of Versailles explicitly prohibiting Germany from increasing its military capabilities, Hitler defied these restrictions, building up a formidable military force in secret. This act of defiance set the tone for Hitler's disregard for international agreements and treaties, a trait that would become all too familiar as his reign progressed. In 1938, Hitler turned his gaze towards Austria. This was a strategic move on his part, as the majority of Austrians were of German descent and shared a common language and culture. In March of that year, Germany annexed Austria, a move that was met with virtually no resistance from the international community. Later that year, Hitler set his sights on the Sudetenland, an area in Czechoslovakia, home to a significant German-speaking population. Hitler claimed that the German-speaking people were being oppressed and should be united with Germany. The international community, still hoping to avoid war, agreed to Hitler's demands in what is known as the Munich Agreement. However, Hitler's ambitions were far from satisfied. In September of 1939, he launched an attack on Poland, marking the start of World War II. The invasion of Poland was a clear violation of the Munich Agreement and showed the world that Hitler had no intentions of adhering to the terms of peace. Hitler's reign was characterized by his aggressive foreign policies and blatant disregard for international agreements. His insatiable desire for territorial expansion was the catalyst for the Second World War, a conflict that would result in the most devastating loss of life in human history. Thus, Hitler's ambitious expansionist policies plunged the world into a war of an unprecedented scale. How did Hitler's reign of terror finally come to an end? The tide of World War II began to turn with the Battle of Stalingrad, a brutal confrontation that lasted over 5 months. It was here that the relentless Red Army halted the Nazi advance, marking a significant turning point. Then came D-Day, the largest seaborne invasion in history, as Allied forces stormed the beaches of Normandy, further tipping the scales against Hitler's Third Reich. As the Allies closed in, Hitler retreated to his bunker in Berlin, a shadow of the fiery dictator he once was. In a final act of defiance and desperation, he took his own life. Yet, the war wasn't over until the fall of Berlin. The city crumbled under the weight of the Allied assault, signaling the end of the Third Reich. Hitler's reign, marked by destruction and despair, finally ended, leaving an indelible mark on world history.